Unfortunately, there is going to need to be a part 1 and part 2 for this video just because this is so much to address and I have to go to work. So therefore we cannot be getting into all of this in just one part. So part 2 is coming out on Sunday and I really encourage you guys to check in because this is controversial. We are hitting up against the most, I call it like a brick wall worldview as it pertains to dating. Like, this is as real as it gets. This is the frustration, and it's really hard to just dismantle it because people have really bought into this worldview for the sake of their survival, for the sake of protecting their vulnerable parts and protecting vulnerable aspects of themselves. My favorite word on this channel quite literally is society, but there is a certain type of way that reality is kind of being run on a grander scale, if you will, in terms of, like, for instance, I, went on the Meetup website or whatever just to check it out, just to meet people, see how cool it is. And automatically it's like, oh, are you willing to pay $10 a month for this subscription? You quite literally need a subscription to make friends and to meet with people in the worlds that we're living in. And recreational mating, if you will, is not easy because of how disconnected we are and how much the internet and everything has impacted our minds in such a way. So I'm not at all here to like take from this person, but this is such a strong worldview to come up against. So I'm just gonna summon spirits, ancestors, angels, aliens, guides, God, goddesses, and ascended masters from above. Please be present with me while I read this Reddit post that we are going to be getting into. So women no longer need men. The dating landscape in 2024 has changed. While this may be obvious to many of you reading this, most people don't adequately understand why or how. Historically, women have been forced to enter relationships with men almost solely based on their ability to protect and provide for them. In our ancestors' evolutionary past, yes, shout out evolutionary psychology majors, shout out all of you. You guys are so awesome. You guys definitely piss me off, but shout out to y'all. Women were dependent on men for survival and resources because they were incapable of hunting large mammals and defending the tribe from raiders during invasions. I also think women were having babies too, and so women being around other women in that tribe, they were able to raise the children, things like that. But I don't know, I wasn't around, don't ask me. Fast forward to the 19th century and part of the 20th, women depended on their husbands to provide for them financially because they couldn't work in certain industries. Now in the 21st century, where women make the same amount of money as men for the same job, they no longer need a man to help them survive, but they do want one. Yes, we no longer are dependent on each other for survival in the same way that we were. And I think that that does disconnect the collective because kind of what makes life even in a sense able to survive is actually by relying on other people. Like, we definitely lost that. And the one they want is exciting, unpredictable, evocative, mysterious, indifferent, and above all, physically attractive. Unfortunately, most men don't possess these attributes. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to showcase them to potential suitors because most men are invisible to women. 80% of women only find 20% of men attractive. According to research conducted by Ghent University, 80% of women, shout out Ghent University, 80% of women only find 20% of men attractive on dating apps. I would not take dating apps too seriously in that regard because, again, women aren't rejecting a man physically present and physically there himself. When you're swiping on a dating app, at the end of the day, you are rejecting a picture. I understand the frustration because we shouldn't have to be put in a place in society where we're so heavily having to rely on dating apps to date. But not all women are on dating apps. I myself don't use dating apps, have not used dating apps. It's not really like what I vibe with, but that's many people out there. This doesn't mean that 80% of women only date or have sex. Sorry, with the 20% of men. That's ridiculous and clearly refutable. If you take one step outside, it means that women only deem 20% of men as physically attractive enough to want to be with. According to the Oxford Dictionary, we got some definitions here. Attractive, having beneficial qualities or features that induce someone to accept what is being offered. Arouse, excite someone sexually. The features that make a man attractive are entirely different from those that make him sexually arousing. A guy with a well-paying, stable job who's good with kids, funny, owns a house, can repair things that break, has decent savings and retirement accounts, but holds excess body fat with little to no muscle is attractive to some women, but not necessarily sexually arousing. I think a lot of women can be sexually aroused by men that have excess body fat. Personally, if that was not the case, I would not have been born, is a thing that I like to say to black pillars, but I understand. We live in a very superficial generation. I assume the person that's writing this is young. Maybe they're not, but I understand where that perception is coming from. But truthfully, truth be told, women are attracted to men that have excess body fat. So I wouldn't let that be the end all be all. I don't think that that's very understanding to what actually turns women on, if you know what I'm saying. Moreover, even if a guy is attractive on paper, he won't necessarily be noticed if the woman doesn't sustain a relatively moderate to high level of attraction for him. Women are inundated with romantic options via real life dating apps. I swear to God, on my spirits, ancestors, angels, aliens, guides, God, goddesses, and ascended masters from above, this is not the case. We are all extremely disconnected. I literally wished. So unless they find you particularly attractive or are their physical type, it's unlikely they'll notice you. Again, I think that there's so much power in creating an emotional connection first, in creating a conversational one, but I understand. I don't want to just throw away everything that this person is saying, because this person is speaking from a place of their truth and speaking from a place of their worldview. So this person is speaking from many experiences that got them this way, that got them to thinking this way. And I completely get that. We can understand where this person is coming from. This does not mean that women wouldn't want to have sex or date guys like this, especially considering most men are built like the aforementioned, but that women won't be sexually aroused by them like they would a guy who's jacked, lean, and well-groomed. I do think that this is like a projection, genuinely. I think that this person might be speaking from their own point of view. Like, as a man that's not attractive to men, maybe I do not see the sexual arousal in a man that has extra fluff on him, but fortunately many women do see that arousal. So I'm just curious the place that the idea that excess body fat equals no love from a woman or a female being ever comes from. Maybe some type of personal experience or some type of personal preference as well. Women can't control what sexually arouses them because it's a feeling. Whenever they see a well-groomed man with muscles, abs, and a handsome face, they can't help but instinctively smile and gawk because they are hardwired to desire healthy genes for their children. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like, a lot of guys that are quote-unquote jacked aren't necessarily healthy unless you want to be throwing some creatine in some baby bottles, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just saying, oh, creatine in your baby bottle, it's just a funny thought. But yeah, this is interesting. This is why we gotta wait for the part 2, because this is just so much. I'm just laying it out there. As such, if you're currently invisible to women, the simplest way to be noticed is by improving your physical appearance with a few other external attributes. I think if it was that simple though, we wouldn't have such a large community presence online of men that feel rejected by women if it was just as simple as cleaning up your looks. But again, the thoughts are so deep and so coming from a place of true pain and a place of truth and true experience. So I don't want to take from that either. But it's very myopic, like this type of worldview. I feel this energy and it feels so claustrophobic, like the walls are caving in. And this guy's last piece of advice is to befriend women. Women like men that other women like. There are multiple reasons for this, but without getting into too many details, it's because it suggests that A, you are a safe guy to be around, and B, there's something about you worth liking. While this is entirely possible, but unusually very unlikely that neither of the aforementioned thoughts is true, women implicitly trust the judgment of other women. So if they see you with another woman, they will automatically assume you aren't a creep because women don't intentionally hang out with weirdos. I've had many male friends over the years who are super weird and are creeps and are weirdos, but I get you. There's always expectations. Shout out to my past friends. I'm sorry. There's always expectations to the rule. Moreover, have you ever seen a gorgeous woman out with a guy that wasn't nearly as attractive? Yes, I've seen this throughout my whole life. One of her first thoughts that pop up in people's minds when this happens is some variant of, how did he pull her? Usually my thought is like, good for them, you know what I mean? But I get that. This is because we subconsciously recognize that in order for a man to attract a woman considerably more attractive than himself, he is likely to possess some other attributes that make up it for the deficit in looks. This is very logic based, this type of argument that's being presented, which I think is okay, but you gotta be careful about the rationalist worldview. It can be very limiting.